Good morning and a very warm welcome to all the journalists that are now connected here within the live stream, but also here within the online environment. I am delighted to welcome you to this Ariane 6 pre-launch press briefing leading up to launch, currently scheduled for the 9th of July. I am here today with Lucia Linares, who is the head of the strategy and institutional launches Vision at ESA. There is Karine Leveau, Director of Space Transportation from CNES, Franck Hubon, Head of Civil Programs from Ariane Group, Caroline Arnaud, Head of Ariane 6 Program from Ariane 6’s, and Michel Bonneau, Inaugural Flight Principal from ESA. And with this, I would like to give the word to Lucia, who will give us a short introduction to ESA's role in Ariane 6 and specifically for the inaugural launch. Lucia, floor is all yours.
Thank you, Nina. Good morning, everybody. My name is Lucia Linares. It's a real pleasure to be here today for this fantastic and historical event for Europe space. As you are aware, Ariane 6 is Europe's workhorse for guaranteed access to space. It is a true European public and industrial undertaking, with involvement of 13 European Space Agency member states and more than 600 companies across Europe. The European Space Agency is responsible for the Ariane 6 program, and in that capacity, ESA procures the Ariane 6 launcher system from the launcher system prime contractor and design authority, Ariane Group. Franck Hubon is here with us. Also procures the launch base development from the French Space Agency CNES, which is also design authority for that base, and Karine Leveau is also here. And ESA is also the launch system architect, and after this development, will entrust the exploitation of the launcher Ariane 6 to Arianespace. Caroline Arnaud is also with us today. This inaugural launch is also part of the Ariane 6 development program, and therefore is under ESA responsibility. We have had a series of tests, of stages, of combined tests, which we have been regularly providing you updates on, joint updates by all partners and the European Space Agency. The first Ariane 6 parts arrived with Canopé in French Guiana back in February. We had the main stage and upper stage assembled, the P120C boosters transferred back in April, and the passengers arrived also on Ariane 6 and are on the ballast since May. Now we have the Ariane 6 now on the pad. We have had a historical moment because last Thursday we had a wet dress rehearsal. During that wet dress rehearsal, everything went as planned. We have fantastic news. Of course, we're still analyzing the data. It might take a few days still, but all we have up to now says that our baby Ariane 6 is working perfectly, including on the propellant loading and all the range and ground control software checks. So this was the very fine milestone before launch. We are ready for launch. And with my colleagues, we're also ready for your questions. And I will hand over the floor to my colleague, Karine Leveau. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucia. Good morning, everybody. As you already know, and as Lucia said, the CNES, the French Space Agency, with its Space Transport Directorate, is involved in the Ariane 6 program with several responsibilities. We are the prime contractor of the launch base, which includes the launch complex development and the adaptation of the means of the launch range. Some people of the Space Transportation Directorate are in the ESA integrated team in charge of the program of the Ariane 6 program. And CNES is as well in charge to verify the correct application of the French Space Operation Act. Under the responsibility of ESA, CNES has conducted with success the Ariane 6 combined test with the support of Ariane Group last year. This test showed that the launch system performed as expected with an efficient and robust operational product. As launch-based technical authority and under the lead of Ariane Group, CNES is involved in the first launch campaign. First of all, the inaugural flight campaign is theoretically the last slot to train and pass our know-how to Ariane Group, which will be in charge to implement all the ground systems as of the first commercial campaign at the end of this year. We use this campaign to prepare Ariane Group people to operate the ground system. For this purpose, CNES people were behind the operating desk last week to perform the operation during the wet dress rehearsal in order to implement ground systems and manage the fluidic operation on the launcher with Ariane Group people. They prepare together the operations realized as they are preparing now for the launch chronology. Of course, we still be always there as launch-based design authority during the Ariane 6 exploitation phase and for the application of the French Space Operation Act after the inaugural flight. To conclude this campaign, the campaign of the Ariane 6 launcher number 1 of the inaugural flight is it is the preparation of the return of European independent access to space. It is an important moment in European space history and for the sovereignty of Europe. So I leave the floor to Franck Lubin, head of the civil programs in Ariane Group.
Thank you, Karine. It's a pleasure to be with all of you for this press briefing ahead of a very important moment for all of us. So Ariane Group received in 2015 a contract from ESA to develop the launcher system of Ariane 6, meaning the launcher itself, as well as all the production facilities and storage and logistics aspects. To this end, we have set up an industrial team across Europe, and especially within the 13 states participating in the Ariane 6 program at ESA. Each partner has a key role in this program, and the way we have gone together as a team is a collective achievement. We have already passed in Kourou several important milestones so far. With a combined test, as you know, the firing test on the launch pad. And we have used all these steps to make the transition as smooth as possible between development and production, between the distribution of roles for the development of the launch system and the commercial exploitation by Arianespace. The inaugural flight is a very important moment for all stakeholders in this program. Expectations are very strong also. We all keep in mind that this inaugural flight is also the start of a very important phase in the Ariane 6 program, the start of a production ramp-up of a progressive extension of Ariane 6 capabilities in different versions to serve the needs of all customers. And this is why we prepare that very closely with Arianespace. We will operate the second flight of Arianespace. And I would like to hand over to Caroline to elaborate more on the part of Arianespace in this adventure.
Thank you, Franck. So, as mentioned in introduction, my name is Caroline Arnoux. I'm in charge of Ariane 6 program and customers relation in Arianespace. And I'm very pleased to be here today for this press conference. So Arianespace is in particular in charge of the marketing and the commercialization of Ariane 6. And as introduced by Franck, Arianespace will be operating Ariane 6 from the second launch, which will be in fact the first commercial one. In addition, in the frame of the inaugural flight and following ESA request, Arianespace provides a support to ESA for the relation with the passengers of this first mission. And it's the reason why I give the floor now to my colleague Michel Bonnet from ESA.
Good morning, everybody. So I'm Michel Bonnet. On this campaign, first campaign, I have the name of inaugural flight principal, so meaning that I'm in charge of the overall coordination of the preparation activity and execution of the launch campaign. So an activity which starts from the mission preparation, so the design of the mission for these first flights, then the launch campaign, and let's say we will go up to the analysis of the flight data that will take place in the few weeks following the launch. So as you know, I'm already in Kourou, so I started the activity in Kourou more or less at the end of February, where we started the integration of the central core. So, and now we have since a few days a launch fully integrated on the launch pad with a number of nice payloads, even small but nice payloads in the fairing, and we are all ready for a nice flight on the nice 9th of July.
Thank you very much, Michel Bonnet. Thank you very much to all the speakers. So this would open the floor to any questions from the journalists currently connected. As you can see in the chat, you have the opportunity to ask questions. You can raise your hand and we will give you the microphone, but you can also type the question here in the chat. We can read it for you if you cannot unmute, or if you have difficulties speaking where you are. If there are any questions, please let us know now. Thank you. No questions?
Should I go ahead with the question?
Yes, I can see that Jonathan has a question, but I think that's not Jonathan speaking, isn't it?
No, it's Peter DeSalding.
Exactly. Peter, you go first then.
All right, thanks very much. So thank you for doing this. Just a clarification. So the wet dress rehearsal last Thursday was apparently nominal from the first pass at the results. I'd just like to get some clarification from you all on what remains to assess from that wet dress rehearsal and how likely it is that that could affect the launch date. Thanks.
I can start, and then maybe Michel can continue and complete my answer to you, Peter. Thank you. So yes, as we said, the wet dress rehearsal that took place on Thursday seemed to be a full success. We are always cautious because we're still retrieving data, and this data needs to be analyzed, and it can take up to a week in full. But there's no impact on the launch date. We have the target date on the 9th of July, and that remains. Michel, if you want to.
Yes, indeed, I can confirm. So the wet dress rehearsal went, let's say, very smooth. We have still, since we have quite a high number of measurements and sensors on the launcher, it takes several days to check every sensor, check every measurement to verify if we don't find any, let's say, anomalous behavior. So we have in 2 days from now a final review of the test results, but all the verification performed up to now didn't evidence any anomalous behavior. So based on that, we are still very confident on for the launch date.
Thank you very much, Michel Bonnet. The next question is from Jonathan Amos. It's for Caroline. Jonathan, you wanna ask it yourself? Jonathan Amos. Otherwise, I read it for you. Jonathan, question is about the current Ariane 6 order book. If you could tell us more about that, Caroline, how many, what proportion are Amazon Kuiper? If you can elaborate a bit on that, that would be appreciated.
Okay, so we have on Ariane Space side for Ariane 6 a quite impressive order book with already 30 launches, Ariane 6 launches, both Ariane 62 and Ariane 64, which have been ordered by our customers, both institutional and commercial customers. So 30 launches in the order book. And just to precise with regard to the second part of the question related to Kuiper, in these 30 launches, 18 are dedicated to Kuiper mission.
Thank you very much. We have the same question from Jeff Faust and from Dieter Zurich on the launch window, actually. How long is the launch window? And I saw that there was also a question on further launch opportunities if the 9th of July would not be possible. Who wants to take that question?
I can start. So the window we have is today 20 to 23 hours Central European time. That means 15-18 hours Kourou on the 9th of July. Of course, if there were to be a need for a postponement for meteorological reasons or otherwise, it would depend whether we have proceeded to the filling or not. So if we have not proceeded to the filling, then it's 1 day. If yes, then we need to, of course, take the propellant out. It might take 2 days, and that's our baseline today.
Thank you very much, Lucia Linares. Next question is from Robert Gast, Die Zeit. Do you want to ask yourself, Robert? Don't know if you can speak. Robert Gast? I will read it for you. Given the delays and the problems the program faced, what would you do differently with the knowledge from today? Do you want to start with that, Lucia, and then maybe others would like to add?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, I'd say we are now focusing fully on this inaugural launch to make it a full success. As you have heard from me, the partners, CNES, Ariane Group, we have done everything in our hands to ensure it is a success and all these steps. And I can tell you we're working relentlessly on this inaugural flight. Of course, other things happen. And we've never hidden it. In full transparency, we've had delays. And like in every major development, we have faced problems. And we've had a number of delays for a number of reasons we have explained along the way, be it because we moved technological choices, because we had a capability also in industry that had not faced a major development ever since the beginning of Ariane 5. So we had to adjust also to very quick market evolutions, and we've done that. And we haven't hidden any of the problems we've been facing for different reasons. What would we do differently? I think we are now today focusing fully on the success of Ariane 6. We are very enthusiastic to recover this guaranteed access to space for Europe, as Karine was saying earlier, for various reasons also that we had Soyuz having to be there. We wanted Soyuz to be there in case of Ariane 6 delays because Ariane 5 was retiring, phasing out in 2023. And then there was a war, Russia, Ukraine. Who could have foreseen that? What I can say is that, for instance, we have done this exercise, we'll continue to do it, and we'll take our time also to continue doing this exercise for the next evolutions and next generation launcher, for instance, to foresee really our own sovereign guaranteed access to space, also for transition periods and overlaps between one launcher to the next. This is a clear lesson learned, I can tell you, and not to rely on foreign means to access space, even for a transitory period. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucia. Frank, do you want to maybe give your perspective on What would you have done differently, knowing what you know today?
I remember that at the very beginning of the Ariane 6 program, we put a strong focus on versatility and adaptability, because we knew that the market was starting to change, that the needs of customers, both institutional and commercial, were evolving quickly. And this focus on versatility is really embedded in the design of the Ariane 6 launcher. Today, what we see around us, what we have been seeing throughout the development, has just confirmed this orientation, that we need a very strong, a very broad scope of mission capability for Ariane 6 in order to serve the needs of all our customers. For sure, we have made a lot of innovations between Ariane 6 and Ariane 5. Innovation in particular on the upper stage of the launcher, with two brand new propulsion systems, the reignitable Vinci engine, and also an auxiliary power unit. This gives Ariane 6 much broader mission capability compared to Ariane 5. But of course, since we introduced innovative system, we met some difficulties. And if we had anticipated, if we had known the results of some developments, we would have been even more efficient. But it is a rule. When you innovate, there is also a risk attached to it. And the return on investment, is worth all the efforts and all the risk we have taken on this. So globally speaking, yes, when you look backwards, you would have been delighted to have the ability to predict the future, but it was not the case. But we really did the best we could. And again, bringing to the market a very versatile, very flexible launcher is a very strong asset. And you might know that even before the inaugural flight, ESA has decided with participating states to improve, to modify the launcher to further enhance the performance and capability of Ariane 6. And I think it's quite representative of what is ahead of us. We will continue to adapt constantly to the need of our customers, and the life of Ariane 6 will be much more dynamic, as was the case in the past with Ariane 5.
Thank you very much, Frank. I see that Kate Duffy from Bloomberg has her hand raised and should be also unmuted and able to ask her question. Kate?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, very well. Welcome.
Great. So, yeah, if the goal is to have about 10 launches a year, how do you plan to keep Ariane 6 competitive against other heavy lift rockets and stay commercially viable in the future?
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah, hi, Kate. I'll start, and maybe also on the commercial market, my colleagues and partners may want to add. So yes, as you rightly say, we are with Ariane 6, we are aiming at let's say a launch rate of 9 up to 12 launches per year. Of course, if the needs are there to increase the rate, we might consider additional investments. But I want to recall first and foremost that we have developed Ariane 6, designed, developed, and now coming to the inaugural launch in order to serve European institutional missions. This is the core reason why the public sector is funding this launcher and why we have a guaranteed access to space. So first and foremost is the guarantee of access to space for our own missions, and those are the missions of the European Space Agency, of the European Union, of EUMETSAT, and of all member states. This is the core mission of this launcher. And then, of course, in order to offset those costs for the public sector, the launcher is also operated and serving commercial clients under the responsibility of Arianespace for both institutional and commercial clients. We shouldn't forget that, because obviously this launcher, guaranteeing access to space, from the very beginning has always faced competition. It was different competition along the life since 79 of Ariane 1, different launchers, different countries, but competition has always been there also because Europe has a limited market, not only institutional, but also our market that it can have access to in the commercial market is quite reduced because most countries have their own ways to launch into space. And even today, with the advent of constellations, which Ariane 6 will be serving and really fully adapted for that, Franck was earlier saying that the full innovation, core of the innovation is on the upper stage, which is particularly fit for constellations, which is the market that is promising and that is increasing exponentially. So obviously, what I can say, and Caroline was saying about that, is that on the commercial market, we have firm orders. It's quite exceptional, you know, that we have 3 years of orders, and this launcher has not yet been on the path soaring into space. So how we face competition, make it viable in the commercial market is through improvements, adapting constantly to the needs, and of course with the characteristics that are those of Europe and the institutional market as the first objective. I don't know if Caroline wants to add anything on the market. Thank you, Kate.
No, thank you. I think you have mentioned most of the points which need to be raised. We can just add that, on my point of view, Ariane 6 has already demonstrated its competitiveness with 30 launchers in the order book, and including more than 2/2 of commercial missions. We have clearly demonstrated that we are able to serve the market, and that Ariane 6 answers to the market need.
Thank you very much, Caroline and Lucia. The next one who has his hand up is Joshua Pusana from Politico. Can you hear us, Josh?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Perfect. We hear you well.
Thank you very much for the floor. Just 2 very short questions. The first of which is on the cadence of launches. Assuming everything goes well on July the 9th, when will we know when the first commercial launch will be, and how quickly after that can you ramp up to the projected 10 a year? And secondly, would any of you be drawn on the cost per launch of Ariane 6? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Josh. Caroline, do you want to take that question?
Okay. We expect second Ariane 6 launch, so first commercial mission before the end of the year. Excuse me. The customer is available, mission defined, so launcher will be available also. So second launch before the end of the year. Following question was related to the ramp up in the coming years. So two Ariane 6 launches this year. We foresee in our manifest we have scheduled 6 Ariane 6 launches in 2025, and very clearly we have the customers for these launches, and 8 in 2026. Then 10 in 2027. So this ramp up can be considered perhaps ambitious. However, it has been, of course, defined with the Ariane Group, considering the production capability, and it's necessary to fulfill our customers' needs.
Thank you very much, Caroline. The next question I will read, it is from Senis Starks from The Standard. Can someone, and I would think that's Lucia, can someone elaborate on the question why it is so important for Europe to have its own transport system like Ariane 6? Why do we need to be autonomous in space, and why can't we collaborate closer with the United States? Lucia.
Thank you for the question from The Standard. I don't recall the journalist's name. So why is it so important to have guaranteed access to space? first, let's look at space, no? Because in the end, as the journalist rightly says, it's a transport. So we always like to put ourselves as being very important. In the end, with serving needs of others to be out in space. And as a transport, first, if I look at what this transport enables is space activities for Europe. These space activities range from a wide spectrum. And when I try to explain my children what it is, I try to think out of my little box. And, you know, they are on their phones. They are coming out of a building and they're trying to find their way somewhere, or they're calling their friends over the phone. That's what the citizens can relate most to, that and meteorological weather forecast. But from that, there's whole spectrum of institutional needs that are then coming to every citizen in Europe. That might be surveillance, that can be Earth observation functions in order to follow fires and not only meteorology, that can be serving military needs. And we have seen what it means all over the years, and we thought at one point this was over, that we maybe could go through collaboration to access space with others on a continuous basis. But unfortunately, recent events have also shown us that this was not the beginnings of accessing space, because I recall in the very beginning of developing Ariane, at its early stages, it was considered whether we could proceed with collaboration with friends, such as the United States, but then conditions were put on the table. It was, okay, but you cannot do commercial activities, only institutional. So of course, when one wants to do something without constraints, and mostly so in such a strategic area as space activities, the first step to get there is accessing space. It's getting out of the pool of the Earth and getting there and putting the satellites, also doing economy. So that's for the applications. There's also the whole challenge and interest of having economic growth and benefits for the whole of the citizens on Earth. So you don't want to depend on anybody. And that's why all the nations that are spacefaring nations want their own access to space. This is the first tiny but hugely important and critical step to having your own space activities out there. And it becomes more and more, as years go by, a critical area here on Earth. And we're seeing it increasingly so in the last 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Caroline, we have a few questions. Maybe you can elaborate on that, on the cost of an Ariane 6 launch.
I'm sorry, it's not I think it's not the subject of today's media briefing, and so I will not enter into the detail. Perhaps what we can just mention is that obviously the launch service price answers to customers' needs since they sign with us and since they're waiting for Ariane 6 to answer to their needs.
Thank you, Caroline. Next one is Lestine Hartbrich from VDI Nachrichten. If all is good, Lestine, you should be unmuted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome.
Cool. Yeah, thank you. The question I have, there's two of them actually. If the inaugural launch fails, will ESA be still in charge of the second one? And related to that, what would you expect to be the minimal delay in the program to be in the case that the first launch fails? And the other question, will the Vinci engine deorbit the upper stage already in the first launch?
Thank you. First question for Lucia, I think, and the second one maybe Michelle can elaborate on.
Very good. So yes, on the first and second related one of Lestine, and then there's a third one for Michelle. So I have to say it's always good to think, what if things go wrong? And we have that in our minds every day. I want to underline, and bear with me for that, we are working so everything is a success. Now, what if the inaugural launch fails? You have 2 questions on that. Would ESA continue to be in charge? And what would be the delay? I can say this launch is under ESA responsibility. Of course, if something goes wrong, it can be for a huge variety of reasons. And then what we would do if something goes wrong is, with all partners, look into the reasons, first exploit the data and recover. And obviously, ESA in principle would be continuing to be in charge together with the partners that you see represented around this virtual table. And the delay would very much depend on the cause of the anomaly or failure. And I pass on the floor to Michel on the Vinci deorbiting, which is one of the key areas of Ariane 6.
Yes, indeed. So on this first mission, we will perform, let's say, all the checks regarding the capability of the launcher, and in particular, since one of the main innovation on the launcher is upper stage with its capability to be reignited. On this mission, the Vinci will be ignited 3 times. And the last burn will be used for the deorbiting of the upper stage. So we'll have a first burn, let's say, as a standard for an upper stage. The second burn will allow to circularize the orbits, and then the third one will be for the deorbitation.
Thank you very much, Michel. The next question is from David Beck from ARD, SWR. I'm going to read it. Could the results of the French election impact the launch schedule? Maybe something that Karine Levaux would like to comment on.
No, I don't think so, that the French election will change anything on the first attempt of the inaugural flight. Obviously, it is something very important for the French, but it's completely decorrelated of the political debates which are ongoing today in France.
Thank you, Karine Levaux. Next question is from Robert Wall, Aviation Week. Are you able to speak, Robert? Otherwise, I read it. Robert Wall, Aviation Week.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Since some of my questions were answered on the launch cadence, let me adjust slightly. You walked us through the launch sequence out to 2027, and you also said you have 30 launchers. But in that time frame between now and end of 2027, are there still launch slots available if someone wanted one? And when do you expect to fly the 4-booster version? And when do you expect to fly the first Amazon satellite? And thank you.
Thank you. A variety of questions. Caroline, do you want to start with it?
Okay, we will have Ariane 64 launches next year, around mid of next year. Concerning Kuiper launches and precise schedule, of course, it has been defined with the customer, but following customer with the agreement with the customer, I'm sorry, but I'm not allowed to disclose any information related to Kuiper contract and Kuiper deployment.
The next question is for Michel from Jonathan Amos. Can you outline the flight profile for the launch? What orbit are you going to? And there are still, and then one for Frank, I think, or Lucia, there are still more than 150 Ariane upper stages in orbit. This is a long legacy of space debris. Will this end with Ariane 6? Maybe Michel can start with the first one.
Yes, so for the regarding the mission, so we will fly a LEO mission at reaching an orbit, a circular orbit at 580 kilometers with an inclination of 62 degrees. This choice, in particular, regarding the inclination, which is not, let's say, very standard, is mostly driven by the fact that for a qualification flight, we are looking for a visibility from ground station nearly for all over the trajectory. And this is obtained with a set of tracking station all around the world. And so we will have, what I can say also is the mission is split, let's say, in two phases, where we have a first phase, what we call commercial flight, so a typical commercial flight where we will release CubeSats on this circular orbit at 580 kilometers. Then we'll follow a demonstration part where we will check, in particular, the behavior of the upper stage, and in particular, trying to verify the behavior of the propellant and capability of the APU to settle the propellant, which is really important for future missions like Galileo missions in particular, where we have very long caustic phases. And at the very end of the mission, we will release also 2 re-entry capsules that will fall in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So let's say a very nice mission scenario.
Thank you. And could maybe Frank and or Lucia answer the question on the space debris?
Yes, I will start, and I guess that Karine will want to add a word, because here the key point is about the French Space Operation Act, which was adopted in 2008, and which has opened the way to a much more sustainable operation towards space and in space. The level of requirement of the level of ambition in the management of debris, and more generally in the security and safety of space operation, has dramatically increased over years. And the Ariane 6 program from the very beginning has been designed to fit and perfectly comply with all these new requirements. So deorbitation was one of the key features in Ariane 6. And as you have seen, this is something we will test from the very first flight of Ariane 6. In parallel, we have an heritage of past space operations, of course, not only from Ariane, which is not by far, which was not the biggest contributor to space operations in the past. And this calls for mitigation measures, including the monitoring of space debris, a domain in which Ariane Group is also developing solutions for space awareness, space surveillance. What is clear is that we progress constantly towards more sustainable operations. And maybe Karine, if you want to add some words on that.
I don't think that I have someone more to say about this topic, this very important topic. You said everything that we have to say about the Ariane 6 program and this compliance with the French Space Operation Act, with the capability to reignite the upper stage. We assure the deorbiting of this upper stage in order to go to the reduction of the space debris and the volunteer to have sustainability of the access to space. So everything you said, Frank, is all we can say about this topic. I have nothing to add.
Lucia, do you
just
indeed maybe want to add?
Beyond the space part, which was well covered by Franck and Karine, that the topic of sustainability is something which we are looking at very carefully in the Ariane 6 program, also to see how we have action to ensure our responsibility. And this goes from, of course, the deorbiting in the responsible use of space, but also on ground. So with life cycle assessments, we have sensors on ground to see how to measure CO2. We have a boat you've heard about, Canopy, for shipping the different rocket elements. It's a wind-powered one, but also I think we can talk, and Karine better than myself also, on the E1 project, on which ESA and CNES are working for sustainable production of liquid hydrogen and oxygen that fuel Ariane 6. And we do so with production of hydrogen through solar power electrolysis in French Guiana. I just want to say that, of course, Jonathan's question was about the deorbiting, but I think this reasoning goes much beyond, and it is a responsibility also of the public sector to look at this. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a follow-up question from Jonathan Amis, BBC, I think for Franck Heuban. Given you have started manufacturing Ariane 6, can you be definitive about the cost of production of the vehicle versus Ariane 5? Is it like 40% cheaper to produce, 50% more? Can you give an indication?
So the industrial scheme of Ariane 6 is radically different from the one of Ariane 5. We have gathered activities into consistent industrial clusters. We have optimized the logistical chain, including sustainable means such as a canopy ship, the sailboat to transport the launcher stages across the Atlantic. And from the very start, we have included industrialization objectives and production objectives in the development of the launcher. This is an evolution similar to the one you may observe in other sectors of activities like the aeronautics. From the very beginning, industrialization is part of the development specification. Comparing the cost of Ariane 5 and Ariane 6 does hardly make sense with regards to the evolution of the economic conditions, and also, even more importantly, with regards to the difference between the mission capabilities of Ariane 6 and Ariane 5. You may only make a comparison if you refer to the same mission, to the same service delivered to the same customers. And today, what we can say at least is that regarding production cycles, we start at the very beginning of Ariane 6 with the same production time as at the very end of Ariane 5 exploitation, meaning that our learning curve will start at the best point we could achieve with Ariane 5. Showing that our ambition to globally divide by 2 the production time of one Ariane 6, we are well on track to reach this objective. And of course, it has a direct impact on cost. Another impact is about production rate. With Ariane 5, we hardly went above 6. With Ariane 6, as Caroline mentioned, we have an ambition to go quickly to 9 and 10 launches per year, and it is only a first step. When we look at the market demand, if we were able to produce much more, we would find customers. So it's a strong incentive to continue the ramp up. And of course, the ramp up is a strong factor of economic efficiency in the allocation of fixed cost, and so in the global maintenance and competence keeping of the teams. So the fundamentals of industrial competitiveness are there. They are secured from Ariane 5 to Ariane 6. And after that, I will say again, as Caroline mentioned, that the final word will come to the market, to the customers. And to date, with our order book of 30 launches, even before the inaugural flight, we have reached a level of market recognition much beyond what we could ever expect on Ariane 5.
Thank you very much. I see that Zulfikar Abani from Deutsche Welle has his hand up. You should be able to speak, Zulfikar.
Yes, thank you. Hi, yeah, it's Zulfikar here from Deutsche Welle. Thanks very much for taking the question. So yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about the sustainability. I mean, you've mentioned the new fuels and deorbiting, but also I read in the press kit something about potentially sending up certain elements up into a graveyard orbit, which we know is not necessarily the best because fragments do fall over time, and that's not entirely sustainable according to your own research. So I want to know a little bit more about that, whether that's really going to be an option for you, but also this idea of keep coming back to this thing about cost while listening to you all discuss these issues, and I'm wondering how you can square this sort of idea of securing access to space with public funds in a very more in an increasingly commercial environment, and an environment where there's an increasing sense of collaboration between peoples. So far, it seems quite protectionist, this idea of securing Europe's access to space when people on the ground just want to have public and commercial services provided. They're not really interested in all of this. I mean, that's essentially what it's coming down to for me, and the global interests in space rather than just Europe's interest in space. That's
Thank you very much. Lucia, do you maybe want to start and then partners can add?
Sure, I'll start with I guess the last question, then there's a question on the graveyard orbit, and maybe just very quickly on that, and colleagues, maybe Michel or Franck might want to add on it. As we said, our main scenario is the stage burn up in the Earth's atmosphere, and we do that with the upper stage and the Vinci reignition. But maybe on the considerations that Zulfikar was making on the evolution of towards commercial space, and it's true, we see space is becoming increasingly commercial, and yet for accessing space, we see a tendency towards either verticalization or nationalistic trends. So it is interesting that space is not a singular direction in terms of all activities. Space is true, it's an area. We do many activities, and I say globally in the world, in space. And we have seen that there's more collaboration, as Zulfikar was putting forward, in terms of having scientific undertakings and other type of activities that are related maybe to Earth observation in certain areas again, or in communication. And yet, when we're talking of very strategic areas, which are about accessing space, but other applications such as Earth observation of particular areas on Earth, or serving purposes that are more military related, then the commercial aspect of it is not so overtaking. So I'd say I would fully agree with the fact that we're going towards more commercial since a decade, but I won't say it's fully commercial in all areas, and it is still, and I believe will continue to be so, very, very strategic domain for many governments around the globe, and therefore the relaying on those services need to be, in particular for accessing space, own means. And when I say own, mostly of the country or the spacefaring nation, which we're talking about. I don't think we're seeing yet that occurring for access to space. Thank you.
Yes, if I may add a word on that. It's true that commercial dynamics on the space markets are impressive, but strategic dynamics also. The application related to security, to defense and space are growing, at least as fast as the commercial application. And this cannot it is difficult in this context to reduce the perspective on space to a purely economic perspective in terms of perfect market, competition, openness. For sure, it is part of the picture. But the capacity for spacefaring nations to maintain their autonomy, their ability to act without depending on the choice of others, is also becoming more and more important. And we are together, I think all people connected to this session, we are stakeholders in both aspects, the commercial one and the strategic ones. As highlighted by Lucia, Ariane 6 was first designed to maintain the capability of Europe to access space and maintain its ambition as a space power. But at the same time, it is also a powerful tool to serve the needs of commercial customers. And as Caroline highlighted, symmetrically, 2/3 of the order books of Arianespace today for Ariane 6 are commercial. So we need to do both, and we do not see it as a constraint. We even see it as an opportunity because the synergies between the two aspects are very strong.
Thank you very much, Frank. There is a question for you as well from Peter de Selding. I would just read it as we have only a few minutes left. On the re-entry capsules, I assume these be recovered by a ship pre-positioned in the Pacific. Is that correct?
Alors, this is more a question for Michel, I think, to you.
Yeah, indeed. So in this mission, none of the two capsules will be recovered. So have in mind that the re-entry point is not that far from what we call the Nemo point, which is the most distant point from any Earth in the Pacific Ocean. So it would have been quite costly activity to try to recover them. So for these flights, again, none of them will be recovered.
Thank you. And then another question from Will Robinson-Smith from Spaceflight Now. Assuming a fully successful launch on July 9th or thereabouts, how soon will the next launch campaign begin in earnest? Caroline.
Just for the launch itself, as mentioned earlier, we expect to launch in December. For the launch campaign, I would say that it's more a question for Frank, probably to know when.
But you know, a launch campaign. A launch campaign is always a convergence between a launcher, a launch operator, a customer, a launch range in Kourou. So yes, we will start just on time. I would say the objective will also be on this first commercial flight to start our learning curve in terms of campaign optimization. So we will take no risk, of course. Our priority will be to serve the customer, but campaign operation is also a domain in which we will start a journey, an improvement, continuous improvement process. And so we will do our best to do it just on time.
Thank you very much. And the last question is from Jonathan Ames from the BBC, who is asking, Elon Musk has said there is no future for a European rocket that is not reusable. Do you disagree? Maybe Lucia, you want to have the final words on that one?
Okay, I guess we can all have our own opinions. They only belong to the individuals. What I can just reaffirm is that, as said previously by my partners and colleagues, we have an order book that is full. Arianespace has an order book that is full. I guess the word is to the customers here, institutional or commercial. They are to be said. Ariane 6 is an answer to their needs. And we'll see, we'll go through the inaugural launch, we'll serve those customers, and we will continue improving. And of course, we are also in Europe working on reusability. Thank you. I have nothing more to add.
Thank you very much, Lucia, and thank you very much to all the speakers that have been with us today. It was a real pleasure Thank you also to the journalists connected. If you have any additional questions or you have new questions, do not hesitate to contact us by email as usual, and we will answer them. Thank you very much and have a very good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.